pretty soon. And then also for those that have Instagram, we got that going. We got a few. Let's see. Got Joyce who said good morning. Absolutely. All right. There we go. And oh man. All right. Hey, what's going on, Jerry? Joshua? Yeah, doing pretty good. Not bad at all. We'll be getting started in a few minutes. Just waiting for some people to join the Zoom real quick. And then also, yeah, what's going on? Man, let me see. Yeah, so we're streaming. For those that are joining, we're streaming live on Facebook. We're also streaming live on Instagram. And yeah, basically today we'll be going over just the state. I call this the state of the economy, the state of 2020 finances, essentially. What you need to do in order to prepare for the upcoming storm. I mean, we are in a storm already, but what are some things you can do now in order to take advantage? And then also, we'll have time for you guys to ask any questions or anything you want. You can feel free to put in the chat box. You can feel free to, post it on Instagram, Facebook. So we are live today, right at lunchtime. So this is more of a session for you guys. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Always love real estate updates, which I'll be covering some of that too. But I know you have more insight when it comes to that because that's what you do as a profession. I more so look at things. Yeah, exactly. I more so look at things from a big picture, overall financial state. Of course, we specialize in taxes as well. But yeah, this is a time for everyone to really. This is a session for you to really learn what's going on. It's to be aware of what's going on right now, what you can do in the future, and how to thrive in a time like this, essentially. Yeah. Yeah, everybody thought 2020 would be good. Everything would be all peaches and cream. What goes up would never come down. And next thing you know, a virus happens. And what goes up definitely came back down. Mm-hmm. 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 All right. Thank you, Cassandra. Definitely appreciate it. And thank you guys for being a part of the session. Today we're live on Zoom. We're also live on Facebook and we're live on Instagram, thanks to the power of technology, which is part of what I'll be sharing today. So today Topic is really on the state of the economy, right? And the what's happening in 2020, what to expect, and ultimately, more importantly than anything, what you can do to thrive in a time like this and not necessarily shrink in a time like this. Or in other words, how do you expand as opposed to contracting? Because a lot of people get in contraction mode during a time like this, but I say you should not be contracting. You should rather expand. Think about ways you can grow. Don't let this whole COVID-19 virus thing be something that holds you back from your goals and your dreams. This is a time for you to thrive. My name is Jeff Badu. For those who don't know me, I'm a licensed certified public accountant. I'm the founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises LLC, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. And we provide a suite of financial services, which include our marquee company, which is Badu Tax Services LLC, which provides preparation, planning, and representation services for individuals and businesses across all 50 states in the U.S., as well as 10 different countries at the moment. So let's talk about, 2020. This a year that ultimately just hit us by surprise. Everything was going great. We were all thriving. We celebrated New Year's. Everything was going great until around, let's say, February. We started hearing in the news that this virus came about, and according to sources, originated from China, from a bat or some type of animal. And the next thing you know, somebody gets it, spreads it to 10 people. Then those 10 people meet another 100 people. Then those 100 people meet 1,000 people. Next thing you know, it ends up in the U.S. It ends up in the entire world, including my own country, Ghana. Very devastating. We were one of the top, tourist places in the world. And the next thing you know, we had the virus too. So this thing has been very, very disruptive. Very disruptive. It is the most disruptive thing that I've actually seen in my existence on the planet. I came to America in 2001 when 9/11 happened. Literally a month before. So I came to America on August 14th, 2001 on my birthday. It was my 8th birthday. And next thing you know, the next month, a bunch of planes started crashing into a building. I'm like, what in the world is happening? What did I sign up for, pretty much? Luckily I was calm. My family managed to calm me down and everything like that. But that caused a recession. So in 2001, we did have a recession because people were losing their jobs. New York was hit hard. There were a bunch of terrorist attacks and all that stuff. So the recurring theme in this presentation is that history tends to repeat itself, because 7 years later in 2008, something similar happened, but it happened in real estate. So the real estate market crashed because banks or financial institutions were giving loans to pretty much anybody. And they were selling things called, these mortgages that were highly, highly leveraged, highly risky, known as derivatives. And next thing you know, it just crushed the financial markets. And you might think, oh, you know what? That was the end of it. But then history repeated itself again in 2020. A virus happened known as COVID-19, coronavirus. And that also will lead us to our next recession, which will officially kick off next month at the end of June, because a recession by definition is 2 straight quarters of declining GDP. In Q1, we had GDP at negative 4.8%, the first time in 10 years since the financial crisis, a decline in GDP, and that was just Q1. We all know the COVID-19 didn't become publicized really until March. That's when things started shutting down. Businesses had to close their doors. That's when people really, really started panicking. But we all know this thing originated, it was like last November actually was when the first case or so actually happened. But it didn't get into the U.S., quote unquote, or it didn't get publicized in the U.S. until about February. So ultimately, what this means is that history does tend to repeat itself. We don't know what the next thing is. As a matter of fact, we're in the next thing now, but we don't know what the next thing after this will be. We don't know if it will be 10 years from now. I guarantee you, though, it will be between 8 to 12 years. in the next 8 to 12 years, and we don't even know how long this recession will last. I predict it'll last about 2 years, because what's going to happen now is that businesses are forced to adapt to a new environment, meaning that we have to go virtual, for example. If your business can go virtual, it has to go virtual, or what will happen is you'll go out of business. Because people aren't comfortable right now going outside. They're not comfortable meeting people in public. So this thing has pretty much revamped everything that we do in the world today. And how we greet people. Like, you can't even shake people's hands. Now we'll have to relearn how to shake people's hands, because people are scared to shake each other's hands. One of the things that the virus comes to is your hands. You know, so it's very, very disruptive. But the reason why I like to kick it off like that, and that we can prepare for some of these things, and that we cannot prepare for the virus itself. Nobody knew, anybody that says they knew that the virus would come in 2020, I think they either are psychic or they're God himself. You know, if you don't fall into that bucket, I don't think you could have reasonably predicted that 2020, a coronavirus, would just crush the world. But however, one prediction you could have made was, well, what goes up must come down. And thankfully, what comes down must also go right back up. It's like an airplane, basically. Meaning that history does repeat itself. Right now, we're in the virus, session. And over 30 million people filed for unemployment. 30 million people lost their jobs over the past 6 weeks alone. Today, the new report came out, unemployment came out, and it was about 3 million people that filed for unemployment claims last week. The previous week was about 4.4 million. And before that, it was over 5 million. So what this is telling us is that it's very, very disruptive. It's very disruptive, and we ultimately need to do things in order to prepare for scenarios like this. And that's why we're talking here today. And that 2020 is a very, very scary year, right? It's a lot of people have been, quote unquote, furloughed or laid off, like unemployment, stimulus checks, SBA loans. These are all things that we can and should be taking advantage of. But basically, 2020 is a year where we have been disrupted. We've been disrupted in a big way, and we need to find a way to thrive in a time like this. And it is possible to thrive. They say most millionaires are usually made during a time like this, where things are down, where, it's a great opportunity to take advantage, not necessarily for the bad. Some people think taking advantage sometimes means something bad, but ultimately taking advantage in a good way. And that we know, here's what happened. The virus got here, and it put work. So it immediately pushed people out of the workforce, and now technology is taking over. Zoom stock price is up tremendously. I wish I had my chart with me, but Zoom stock price is going up tremendously because they're a company that is adapting to technology, right? It's a company that's adapting the world into it's still face-to-face, right? We can still see each other on Zoom and Facebook, but at the same time, we're not forced to go out into an office anymore. So here's what I think will happen in the future, right? So now we know what's happening now, but here's my predictions for 2020, the rest of 2020 and the future. Prediction number 1, we will be in a recession next month. That's not a surprise. Remember, recession is 2 straight quarters of decline in GDP, meaning that gross domestic product is basically going down. And companies have already stated in advance that their Q2 numbers will go down. General Electric was one of the first companies to say, our Q2 numbers will look pretty nasty, right? Companies like Apple. Basically, companies can't produce right now because people are forced to work from home, or they're forced to be home. Some people are getting sick, and offices aren't necessarily being open right now. So the first prediction of 2020 and moving forward, and I think this thing will last about 2 years, as far as the financial impact, devastation will continue for 2 years. So we will be in a recession. So if there's something to write down now, It's that 2020 is a recession year. A lot of people did actually, that I know, did predict a recession in 2020, but nobody actually said what would cause the recession. That was the problem. Nobody said, oh yeah, maybe this thing might cause it, this might cause it. Nobody had a leading indicator of a recession. I kept saying it. We don't have a leading indicator of a recession right now. Until the virus hit, and that was our leading indicator right there, that people are now forced to stay home, right? So they can't go to work, they can't produce. So that hurts the economy, ultimately. So that's the first prediction. The second prediction is people will be stuck working from home for the rest of time. And I know those are very dangerous words that I just said right there. But people will... The rest of time meaning companies will not force workers to go back to offices anymore. Why? For one, productivity is now increasing as people work from home more. Somehow, some way, people are being more productive by being home and doing things in a more convenient environment, not having to travel to the office. Secondly, it costs money to have these offices. Offices aren't free. If you notice, JP Morgan Chase started shutting down branches a while ago. And I think that trend will continue to happen. So for you, Cassandra, commercial real estate, I think, is in a very, very dangerous place. Meaning office buildings, restaurants, things of that nature. People still have to eat, and these restaurants need a place to make the food. However, your brick and mortar, people going into an office, people going into a place, that's going to be a thing of the past, unfortunately, for real estate. Because even if people work from home, guess what? They're working from home. They need a home to begin with. Exactly. They need a home to work from, so residential real estate is the place to be and will always be the place to be, because even in the beginning of time, they needed a place to stay, whether it was a hut, a tree. They needed somewhere, a place of abode, basically, somewhere where they can live. And now you can actually do business from home. You can work from home. So the demand for residential real estate, in a way, is going to be much higher than commercial, although real estate prices will go down, because right now, supply is about to be high, because people will be forced to sell their homes. They might not be able to pay the mortgage. If they don't release more stimulus, if people keep getting laid off like the way they are currently, if unemployment keeps getting delayed the way it currently is, then what's going to happen is people won't be able to pay their bills anymore. We've already seen in the report for mortgages that mortgage payments have gone down tremendously. And that was in April. We're now in May, and that number, I can imagine, has also increased of the number of people that miss their mortgage payments. What happens when you miss about 6 months of mortgage payments? You get into what's called foreclosure. Now they do have some laws and everything regarding that in a time like this. However, I can still imagine that a bank can still send somebody or is able to claim something that is theirs at that time. So what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot more foreclosures, people losing their homes. So that's going to release a lot of inventory into the market. And unfortunately, there won't be enough buyers because banks have now increased their restrictions on loans. For example, to get an FHA loan, you now need a 620 credit score as opposed to the traditional 580. So with that being said, and also some banks have said, we're not lending anymore to home buyers. Like Chase, for example, they just came out and said, we're not doing any FHA. We're not doing anything that's less than 20% down payment. So unless you're in a special program or, whatever they term those things as. So ultimately, what's going to happen is people will be losing their homes and real estate prices will be forced to go down. Now, what does that allow us to do? It creates an opportunity for us. And that now, as a good buyer, as somebody who saved 6 months worth of reserves and all that good stuff, which is part of the things you need to do. We'll talk about what you need to do in a second. Right now, we're just going into what's predicted to happen in the future. But what's going to happen is now a buyer let's say a good buyer. Let's say you're a good buyer, somebody who has decent credit score, still has their job or a stable income and has some reserves on hand. You're going to be able to go to that homeowner now and buy their house at a steep discount. That's what happened in 2008 with Berkshire Hathaway. Warren Buffett actually did not get into real estate until 2008. When the prices started going down, he got very, very greedy. He said, in a time where people are panicking, or in a time where, if basically get greedy when a time like this, when you have the money to buy, when you have the money to do things. But then when everybody's greedy, then you should be holding back. So for people like Warren Buffett in 2008, he decided to buy up a bunch of real estate. Next thing you know, he came up with Berkshire Hathaway. So ultimately, a time like this will create opportunities. So one of my predictions, real estate prices will go down and opportunities will be created for the good buyers. If you're not a good buyer, then this is the time to maybe go through some credit repair, right? Time to start negotiating with the creditors, the collection agencies. This is a great time to do credit repair because you have one big thing going for you in the COVID-19. You can use COVID-19 as your reasoning for that collection, or your reasoning for it. Not to say you should be making excuses, but this is just a way for you to get ahead. If your credit is not good right now, if you have collections, late payments, anything like that, this is a time where you need to be speaking to the lenders and the banks and the creditors to negotiate some things, right? Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, how can you use COVID-19 as a reasoning to get out of a contract? Well, I'm not an attorney, and anything I say today is not legal advice, so don't take it from me. But I've heard, yeah, exactly. Got to put that disclaimer out there. But I heard from an attorney that when in an act of God, quote unquote, in a situation where there's an act, where it's a disaster, you can actually get out of any contract that you entered into. Meaning, for whatever reason, basically you can say, okay, well, I was into this contract, and so due to this act that I wasn't aware of, or due to this crazy scenario, I can back out of this contract. That's what I've heard, right? But here's something that's even more on point, in that basically, if a creditor is chasing you down and maybe you had some outstanding debt, well, now is the time to pick up the phone for that. You don't want to let the thing go to voicemail. You want to pick up the phone and say, hey, I owe $10,000. Well, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm not able to work. I just got furloughed. I just got laid off. My unemployment hasn't come in yet. My bills are piling up. So I have $2,000 for you, though, that I've managed to save up. Or maybe $1,000. I have $1,000 for you. The creditor is going to accept that in a heartbeat, because they know that you're just giving them $1,000, but that's better than zero. Collection agencies are paid, and their reputation is based off if they can collect. Whether or not they can collect the full amount, that's besides the point. So basically, if a collection agency calls you right now asking you for money, the first thing I would go to is settlement. And just propose an amount. Just say, hey, I just got, it could be $500, to be honest. If you owe $10,000 to a collection agency or anybody, you can say, and this is if it goes into collections, whatever you can do to not let it go into collections, please do it, meaning pay your bill on time, because this thing can have an effect on your credit. Remember, we're talking about abundance. We're talking about expansion, not contraction. One of the first steps to expand, if you are in bad debt, is settling with the creditors. But at the same time, this shouldn't be a driver to you to just say, oh, hey, debtor, I'm not going to pay you. Put my account in collections, and then I start this. Because this will end up on your credit report. Anytime you have an active collections, it's on your credit report. I'm talking about those that have this active collections on their report. Call up the creditor or the collection agency. If you owe $10,000, say I got $1,000 for you today. I can pay you right now. I have my credit card ready. Will you accept it as settlement? And they will, because it's better than nothing. They know they won't be able to collect anything if they don't accept that. And when you, in a way, pressure somebody over the phone, when you propose something over the phone to somebody on the spot and say, this is your last chance, they usually take that last chance. Right? I've done this for people. And we actually run a credit repair company as well, if you guys ever need help with that service. So yeah, I mean, just to recap, if you owe a debt right now, this would be a great time to settle that debt. You don't necessarily have to go through bankruptcy, which remains on your file for about 7 years. And trust me, I know a lot of people listening today, or a lot of people in general, are on the verge of filing for bankruptcy. This is not the time to be in bankruptcy. Yeah, exactly. Because the moment the creditor sees, if you're trying to apply for a loan or anything like that, and they see bankruptcy on your file, you're gone. I mean, you're basically, they won't look at your file. There are some lenders that will loan to it, but I don't know too many of those lenders. So bankruptcy is a big no-no in a time like this. What you need to do is pick up the phone, talk to the creditor, like go through all your debts right now. Maybe it's a medical bill, which is the #1 debt or the #1 collections account in America right now. I don't like to go here, but student loans. Student loans is a bit of a tricky thing. But it could be anything, any type of debt. Right? Just pick up the phone and turn on your negotiation skills. If you're not comfortable, then make sure you consult with an attorney or somebody who's a professional at credit repair. So that's one thing you guys can do in a time like this, is make sure that your credit is decent to put you in position to be able to get the great investments. Because the great investments are only going to those who are qualified now. It's, if you're trying to apply for a house or a mortgage, it's only going to those who are good buyers right now. If you're not a good buyer, if you have collections, judgments, anything like that, you can forget about it. Unless you're buying all cash, which we usually never buy houses all cash. We leverage the bank. We can always get at least 75% from the bank. And the 25% or so, or even an FHA scenario where you can do 3.5% down payment, that's pretty powerful. So does that not? Yes, sir. Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, so I personally, to be honest, I personally was not aware that the credit bureaus were giving out free credit reports. However, you can always get a free credit report on a site like Experian.com, for example. If you go to Experian.com, you can get your credit report for free. Sometimes they'll charge you like $1 just to verify your identity, but then after that, you can cancel your membership and still get the credit score. Or you can use a site like Credit Karma, which gives you your report. So it gives you a nice gauge of what your credit is. It might not be the most accurate score, but it actually gives you a nice gauge of where your credit report is. But yeah, I mean, if you like, that is one thing, is always become aware of what your credit is. Right now, you should be checking your credit probably on a weekly basis just to make sure nothing crazy is going on. And if you have anything negative, now is the time to put yourself in a position to be ready for these great investments that are about to pop up on the market pretty soon, or even off the market, and settling with creditors, wiping out any late payments, any inquiries or anything like that. That's what's called credit repair, basically repairing your credit, essentially. But that's a good point, Cassandra. Definitely appreciate that. Mm. Absolutely. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, that's a good one though. So basically, let me just recap what I think is going to happen in 2020 moving forward. we'll be in a recession starting next month officially. And then I believe it will last us about 2 years or so, and then we will officially recover from it. Also, a lot of people won't be able to go back to the office. They'll still be able to work, but they won't be able to go back to the offices because I believe that these companies will shut down their offices. Not necessarily permanently, but they won't have that many people in there because here's the thing is that if you can be productive at home, why in the world do you need to be in an office? Right? If you don't have to come into the office, if you don't have to have rent, rent can be pretty high nowadays. Their thing is why shouldn't we have done this? I was talking to a therapist yesterday, and she said she's doing all therapy sessions virtually now. And since doing that, her business has grown 2 times. Well, I'm like, well, let's just shut down all the offices. So the thing is, if you can increase productivity that way, then there's really no reason. And we do this, by the way, too, in our firm. In the Badu Tax Services and Badu Enterprises brand, we're all virtual now. We used to be 95% virtual. Now we're 100% virtual because we can do everything is online. Everything is in the cloud. All the taxes and everything, we can do it all online. So companies will be forced to go to the cloud. For those that have not adapted to the virtual environment yet, they will be wiped out. Your older accounting firms will be on sale too. So not just real estate, but accounting firms will be on sale. And we're the first in position to buy those firms too. But ultimately, those are my 2 major predictions. Now, really quickly, let's just spend about 5 to 10 minutes talking about some things you can do to really get ahead in a time like this, knowing what's about to happen. First, you have to be mentally prepared. You have to really sit down and go through a meditation exercise and just say, am I ready for this? And basically put your mind in a mental state of positivity. COVID-19 is here, it's making people sick and all that, but it's also creating opportunities, and it's allowing people to receive extra money that they would have otherwise not received. So basically, to anything negative that's happening right now, your mind has to shift to positivity. So your mental needs to be right in a time like this. Not everybody can go through a recession. In 2008, some people committed suicide. Some people just died in general just because they could not sustain. Some people had to go homeless, experiencing homelessness, which is what the Badu Foundation was created to help solve, that issue. So overall, you have to be really mentally prepared and say, this is the time for me to get ahead. It's not tomorrow, it's not next week, it's not next month, but it starts today. It starts by doing research, which is part 2, and you have to educate yourself. You have, those watching this webinar, I highly applaud you guys. You guys would be the first people to get ahead. This is the time, this is literally the battle of the fittest right now, is who's fit and who's not. It is a health battle, right? That's one battle, and of course, stay safe, wear your mask, wear your gloves, don't go outside and all that. But it's also a financial battle, and who's fit? Who has their 3 to 6 months worth of savings in the bank, cash, liquid? Right? This is the battle that we're going through. The folks that can't pay their mortgages are usually the ones that didn't have money saved up to begin with. And now a late payment is getting reported on their credit report unless they filed what's called a forbearance, where basically it allows you to defer your payments into the future, but all the payments become due at once. So I usually don't think that's a good idea. So basically you have to be educated. I have a ton of articles, ton of videos, ton of resources, and I do a weekly radio show. And of course we're doing this now on the website, jeffbadu.com, which has, just tons and tons and tons of resources. Website, once again, is jeffbadu.com, jeffbadu.com. And you'll be surprised at some of the things you'll find on there. We also do, of course, offer services such as financial coaching, taxes, and all that good stuff, which is something we do as a professional. That's how we pay our bills. That's what we do as a profession. So we can help you in that way too. But we do offer a lot of free education. But now is the time to start learning more about real estate. Start learning more about that investment. Because as we know, if you're relying on one source of income, it's not going to work in today's society, or in any society for that matter. If all you rely on is one stream of income, and let's say you get furloughed or you get laid off, guess what? You have 0 streams of income. That is the most dangerous way possible to be living, where you have no money coming in at all. Right? So this is the time to learn about that second stream of income. Maybe it's becoming a real estate agent or broker. Maybe it's getting an insurance license. Maybe it's learning how to do taxes. Maybe it's learning how to invest in real estate and how to snag up multifamily rental properties at a pretty decent price. So this is a great time for you to educate yourself. And it begins with knowing what you want. Part of that mental preparation is setting goals, setting benchmarks, setting a vision board as to what it is that you truly want in your life. Next, you have to beef up your savings. You have to do this step. At least 6 months of your expenses should be saved in the bank right now. Meaning if you pay $1,000 a month in expenses, your car note, your bills, all that, you should have 6 months worth of that saved in the bank. It used to be 3 months where you could get away with 3, but in an environment like this, you have to have 6. Because when that mortgage payment, let's say you lose your job, God forbid, or you get furloughed or whatever happens, now you have something to rely on for the next 6 months because you've already budgeted that into it. So now you don't need to, now the pressure is going to go down a little bit because you have 6 months of reserves that's saved up. And the same thing goes for my real estate investors. If you don't have 6 months worth of expenses in the bank right now, of your mortgage, utilities, and all that, that's trouble. Because what happens when a tenant decides not to pay you? What happens when your income stream turns off? You lose your primary job. Well, now you might have to lose that rental property to somebody like myself who's ready to buy these properties because I put myself in a position to buy. Credit is good, income is stable, and there are reserves in order to buy up these properties. So I'm one of the first people that is ready for an opportunity like that because I've positioned myself. I've got my 6 months reserves ready. I've got my down payment ready. I've got my relationships with my banks already structured and lined up. I've talked to my banks before this whole thing happened, and I told them I'm looking to buy these properties. Make sure you have my pre-approval letter ready when I go into bid on these properties. And make sure my closing timeline is pretty short because we know right now there's a lot of things that are causing delays and sellers need money ASAP. They needed the money like yesterday. So I'm talking to the banks. I'm talking to anybody that's helping me get into a good financial position. If you have a financial advisor, now is a great time to have that conversation and say, what are my finances looking like? What can I do to rebalance my portfolio? All right, so you really have to put yourself in a position to be prepared for this stuff. You didn't have to know that a COVID-19 would happen to know that you should be saving 3 to 6 months worth of reserves. Now you might have been at 3, which is pretty good, but now we just need to beef it up to 6. So we didn't need a pandemic to tell us that we should have 3 to 6 months worth of reserves saved in a bank. Same thing with my real estate investors. Why were people losing their properties left and right in 2008? Because they weren't prepared financially. They were never prepared to buy real estate, right? In that they didn't have the reserves. It is good that they owned a house and they were investing, but understand that the real estate and the money is a game that you have to play. You have to play it right. And for those that have never played the game Cash Flow, I highly encourage you guys to play that by Robert Kiyosaki. But next is you have to boost your income. All right, don't rely on one stream of income. Now is the time to do more research on multiple income streams. We need at least 2 minimum. The average millionaire is about 7, but you need at least 2 nowadays because if one gets turned off, then you can have another one that's, turned on. So you have to boost your income in a time like this because we don't know when we'll lose our jobs. We don't know when we'll be furloughed. Maybe some of us have already lost our jobs. Maybe some of us have already been furloughed. So if you have multiple income streams, then you don't have to rely on that one income stream. So now you have 2 income streams, and then you just keep building it from there. one great way to boost your income, not to get too long and winded into this, but utilize the FHA loan that allows you to buy up to 4 units, right, with as little as a 620 credit score, and it can have a fully government subsidized down payment program. Highly recommend this, especially for those getting started. FHA loan, Federal Housing Administration loan, allows you to buy up to a 4 unit with as little as 3.5% down payment. Love this loan, big proponent of it. Great way to get started in real estate. The whole flipping thing is not really too hot, in my opinion. I think if you're a flipper, you have to be extremely careful because prices will go down. And as a flipper, I used to be a flipper, I have to rely on prices going up or prices being stable over between 3 to 6 months, which is not going to happen right now. Right? And that's why some lenders have stopped lending to flippers altogether. Exactly. Exactly. That's a good point. Yeah, pretty much it's talking about the FHA loan, and yeah, it's a very, very good loan to have. And somebody said, what's the income cap on the FHA? Well, the first question was, how do you not pay 20% down payment on a house? Well, there you go. It's the FHA loan, Federal Housing Administration loan. Exactly. What's the income cap? I'm not exactly sure what it is, but to be honest, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to my understanding, as long as your debt to income ratio is below 43%, you should be able to qualify for it. I don't know if banks have changed that requirement, but I would not worry about that. Right now, what you need to be worried about is talking to the lender and getting on the phone with the bank. If you need a good lender, I do have some referrals for you, and I'm sure Cassandra also has some referrals. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and I mean, a few other things. Find ways to reduce your expenses. So now is not the time to be going out shopping and doing all types of crazy splurging. And this is not the time for that. This is the time for you to get ahead financially. So your expenses do have to be cut to a pretty optimal amount, essentially. Exactly. Exactly. And then, yeah, and then last but not least, make sure that you're protecting yourself and make sure you have good health insurance. You also have life insurance. Life insurance is very critical for protection's sake and also for investment's sake. Life insurance is one way to increase your investments. And somebody asks, so just call Chase. Yeah, no, Chase is not the bank to call right now for the FHA loan because they don't do FHA loans right now at this time. If you want, just shoot me a message, ask for a referral, and we'll be able to send you some referrals. So right now, it's good to go to one of those more private banks because the big banks, a lot of them have actually stopped the FHA loan, including Chase, who just came out a few weeks ago saying they're not doing FHA loans for the time being, at least. But yeah, that's pretty much the content. You know, more than happy to answer any questions you guys may have. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know we probably have some more questions. Feel free to reach out to me if we end early or anything. Just shoot me an email at jeffbadu@gmail.com or post in, send me a message on Facebook, Instagram, however way you can reach out. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or anything you guys have. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question was, do I think that we'll see another round of stimulus checks? So, firstly, for those that don't know somehow, the IRS, or the government, Congress, I should say, released stimulus known as the CARES Act that allowed us to get about $1,200 or so per person. And that money was directly deposited into our bank accounts, or we'll be in the process of receiving a check known as the economic recovery payment, essentially they call it. So that one, a lot of people have received their stimulus check. Some people have not received it yet. If you have not received it yet, all hope is not lost. You may receive it. Just go to the irs.gov website, track your payment, and just be patient. But ultimately, I do think another round of stimulus will have to come in, because the way that the numbers are looking is very, very scary. And that, 3 million people lost their jobs last week. Over 30 million people over the past 6 weeks have lost their jobs. So at a rate like that, you can't really sustain the economy, and people are still broke, unfortunately. All right, people were broke before the pandemic, and people are broke after the pandemic or during the pandemic. So there has to be stimulus. They're talking about a $2,000 a month stimulus coming out pretty soon. That's still in the works in Congress. And I do think that will be passed, or something similar to that. But yeah, $2,000 a month per leader or head of household in your family. I do think another round of stimulus will be coming out. But remember, first in line is first to eat. In that you need to have your 2019 taxes in order. If you want to receive government program and assistance, you have to be compliant with the government. So the government is not about to send you money when you're not compliant. So make sure your 2019 taxes are filed. That's an action that you can take. Remember, proactive versus reactive. This is a time where you have to be proactive as opposed to reactive, meaning your taxes are filed. If you have a business, your business taxes are filed. If you don't have an LLC, or if your business is not incorporated, make sure you get your business incorporated, because more programs might be available to you. As we know, one of the American dreams is to own a business, right? So my advice to everyone is make sure you get your stuff in order. If you have some time where you can get things, your taxes are filed, you have your bills are being paid. I mean, just things like that. Just make sure you're in position, so that if and when they come out with these programs, that way you're the first in line to get it, as opposed to being reactive. Next thing you know, they run out of SBA money. So that's my big advice. There will be more stimulus coming soon. And please prepare yourself, not tomorrow, but right now. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, for those that are on Facebook and Instagram, please feel free to ask any questions that you have. This is our Q&A time. Any questions at all? If you don't feel comfortable, or if you don't have a question now, please feel free to ask me a question after the chat. But a question here, it says, do you think I could try to get out of a car loan during this pandemic? Yes, I think so. I mean, one thing about a car, though, is you do have to be careful. And that with a car, sometimes they can... So basically, if they see that you're driving a car and then you call them and say, hey, I'm not going to pay you, then that's going to be a problem. The first thing they can do is they can repossess the car. But what you could do is, let's say that you're behind on payments for whatever reason, you could call them and ask them for a settlement. That you can do. And say, hey, I really want to drive this car. I want to keep this car. I owe $10,000 on it. I've been laid off. Using whatever defenses you can use, and then ask them for a settlement amount. So that you can do. But remember, I don't recommend you do this for good loans, meaning loans that you're current on, loans that are being paid on time, because this has, although you can get reduction, this will have a negative impact on your credit. So you do have to make sure you're doing a good trade-off there. Okay. Yeah, 350,000 income limit. Wow. Yeah. Got it. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Mm. Mm.
On the south and west sides. So if anybody that knows the city of Chicago, if you're from here, you will see their name on several buildings and several communities. So that is just an example. Now, we don't have Pangea real estate money, but the concept is still the same, you all. So we have to make sure that we keep that in mind. They became basically a conglomerate in real estate here in Chicago. So look them up and follow their story, Pangea Real Estate. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is the forbearance that you spoke about. And again, I am not a mortgage lender, but as Chicago, as a realtor here serving the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, I also am connected to the National Association of Realtors. And what we are seeing from a real estate perspective on forbearances, so far we have about 3.5 million homeowners that have obtained forbearance for their homes across the nation. Wow. Now, granted, there may be more or less depending on the state and the county that you live in. Mm-hmm. What does that mean as we look at Q3, as Jeff spoke about? Well, that basically means that we are going to go into a situation where it's not going to be a seller's market. Like right now in most of the communities here in Chicago, it's a seller's market because the inventory is very, very low. Well, in a month or so, it's going to become a buyer's market. What does that mean for us? That means that we will have inventory to pick and choose from. So now we lead the negotiations at the negotiation table. And I want you to understand how important that is to be able to lead the negotiation. So if there's a price that you don't like, you can go in, well, you know what? I'm not really good with this price. It's not going to be, the demand is not going to be as high, but the supply is going to be high. So this is an opportunity for you all to take advantage of this wave as it shifts in our communities back to being a buyer's market, because there are unfortunately going to be short sales, there are going to be pre-foreclosures, there are going to be cash deals. We will see an influx of that. So I just wanted to share those 2 points before we end the call.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, you are right in that it's we will see a lot of these foreclosures. Real estate prices will go down, and it will become a buyer's market very, very, if not, I mean, very, very soon. You know, so it will be an opportunity to be able to negotiate a little bit more. I remember it was about 2 years ago, houses were getting off the market. Like, I mean, you put it on, it was off immediately. And it was selling for top dollars. Nowadays, I mean, I'll share a testimonial. I just had an appraisal that went bad. It was appraised for $30,000 less than the purchase price. What does that mean? We got to go back to the negotiation table and drop the price down by $30,000. Now, guess what? All right, this is actually what's happening right now. Now we have to go to the seller, and the seller is going to be forced to sell for $30,000 less, because guess what? When he tries to sell it to the next buyer, and the next buyer goes through an appraisal, well, that price is going to be even lower. So he might have to take another $30,000 hit. So now the seller is in this shell of, do I just place my bet now, or do I wait and possibly the price is going down? If it's a smart seller, the seller will know that the prices will go down in the future. So let me sell it now and let me just get out, because this seller's looking to exit. I don't know who they are personally, but they need some cash and all that good stuff. So that gives me bargaining power to lower the price on that property. Now, if the seller decides, hey, I'll just take my bets and back out of the deal, then that's fine too. You know, we did put a lot of time and energy into the deal, so it will bog us down a little bit. But real estate prices will be forced to go down, which will allow people like you and I to go out and buy these properties at a pretty good discounted price. So hopefully the seller accepts the $30,000 reduction, and we'll have, another property on our hands.
Absolutely. And just keep in mind too that when the appraisal is done, once that value is set on their property, that value price will last on their property for up to 6 months. So even if they decide to walk away from the table with you because they think they're going to get the next person that's interested to pay that price, no, that appraisal is going to remain on property for a minimum of 6 months. So there's no way for that seller to go and purchase or do the deal with someone else. So again, these are things that you really, really need to know about. The best way to find more information is to obviously take time and do research, but secondly, connect with the lender, connect with the financial institution that specializes in REOs, real estate properties, bank-owned properties, because these banks are getting ready to and these mortgage companies, they're getting ready to get an influx of return properties, and banks don't want properties. They don't make banks.
Yeah, they're not in the business of that. Exactly. Banks are not in the business of properties. Yeah. Exactly.
So
now, really quick.
For any questions before we wrap up?
Yeah, really quick.
I hope that this was beneficial for you. You got some more, Jeff?
Yeah, just somebody asked what's my email. Email is jeffbadu@gmail.com. It's very simple. jeffbadu@gmail.com. Email me any questions, comments, anything you have. The Instagram Live, it looks like Instagram has a time limit, so I'll go ahead and end that. I know we're about to end in a second. Facebook Live will end in a second too. But definitely thank you all for being a part of this.
Yes, and let me share my information again for those that joined late. My name is Cassandra Singh. I am a local real estate broker. I service the entire state of Illinois. I also have partnerships all across the United States of America. So if you are looking and it is outside of Illinois boundaries, please don't fret, because I do build a nationwide relationship with realtors all over. This same information that I'm sharing with you, you can sit down and connect with a local realtor in your state and get the same information. If you need connections to real estate agents where you live, where you would like to invest, please reach out to me. And if I can help you with any real estate investments here in the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois, the way to contact me is area code 77. One of my investors, and he only services the southeast side of Chicago. That's his niche. He knows the area. He knows the value of buildings over there. He doesn't buy anything under 4 units. But he called me yesterday and he said, I just want you to know that I have a business line of credit lined up to be the bailout for anybody that you know that needs to get rid of multi-units. So when I tell you this man has not missed a beat with this COVID-19, he priced his rent so low that his tenants are still paying in this COVID-19 pandemic. We have not missed one rent payment from any of his tenants. He has over 20 tenants. Everybody's paid up. So when you position yourself to be in this business, and you make sure that you put the plans in place to make it happen, and you nurture that, there's nothing that we can't do, you all. So I just wanted to leave that with you all as we close up. But yes, my number is 773-503-3352.
Absolutely. Definitely appreciate it. And yeah, you are right. And man, having that line of credit to bail, and I like the way he termed it, to bail people out, because he's the guy that's going to be buying the properties when people go on foreclosures. So to some people,
Definitely.
that's viewed as taking advantage. But to him, he's helping the next homeowner get out of that position because they can't afford that mortgage payment anymore. So yeah, I mean, more power to him. That's for sure.
I know, right? Well, listen, Jeff, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I had such a phenomenal time. I have my commandments here. I'm gonna post them later. If you can message me the commandments that you created,
Yeah.
I would love to post those and direct any additional questions back to you in regards to the services that you provide. And please feel free to do the same for me. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. We're closing out. This is Miss Cass with Exit Strategy Realty, your neighborhood real estate broker. And Jeff, you want to close out?
Absolutely. Thank you guys once again. My name is Jeff Badu. And if you need help with anything, please let me know. Phone number 773-679-7198. Email is jeffbadu@gmail.com. And the website is jeffbadu.com. More than happy to help you out with anything. Stay strong, stay positive, stay motivated in a time like this, because we will get through it. But this is the time where only the strong will win this battle. So appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much. And we'll have to link up again on another one of these really soon. This was really fun and really educational. Have a good day, you all. It's a Thankful Thursday. Be thankful for what you have.
Amen.
I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. Enjoy the rest of your week. Later.
Thank you.